Hello again. Welcome to the Firebirds Within channel. Time for another one of these one underrated song per album videos. This one's going to be a bit of an epic one. It's a long one. It's the mighty Judas Priest. It's a long one, this, and I had to do a lot of listening on this one to get all the songs in my head and decide on what I would consider as underrated compared to the well-known hits of Priest. Excuse me. So anyway, I had to do a lot of skimming on some of the old stuff because it's not fresh in my mind. I had to do a fair bit of listening, and I've gone through the whole discography. Right, starting with their very first album, Rock-a-Roller. I struggled with this album. It's not really something I would listen to as something enjoyable for me. But the song I've managed to sort of pick is called Dying to Meet You. It's well, I've only listened to it quickly, and it was an okay song compared to the rest on the album. It's got slightly more cooler riffs in it, a very good Halford vocal. His vocals on the album sound really good, but everything else sounds muted and slightly raw, weak, not not heavy at all, but interesting anyway. Okay, the next album, Sad Wings of Destiny, is a classic old fan favourite. The song I've picked out here as being underrated is Island of Domination. It's the final track on the album. It's a really good song. It's quite an epic song as well. It's got a few different types of textures, a few different passages, etc. Really cool song, that. And the other song that's stood out as being possibly a hidden gem is Epitaph. That was a really nice song as well. Moving on, Sin After Sin, another well-loved 70s period Priest classic. The song that stood out for me here was Starbreaker. It was more of a hit single type song slightly, but still underrated to me. It was very catchy. The chorus is very catchy. Halford's vocal is very good on that song. The other song that I picked out is Dissident Aggressor, which is probably not, I wouldn't class it as underrated because it is quite well loved as a classic Priest song, and obviously Slayer even covered it, so I wouldn't say it really qualifies as an underrated song, but it is an awesome song, so just wanted to include that. But Starbreaker is the one that I pick as being the underrated song. Okay, the next album, Stained Class. The song I picked here is Invader. I found this to be a really catchy song. The chorus is simple but very catchy. I found this song really enjoyable. It's really cool. The next song which I liked from this album as being slightly underrated was Hero's End. I thought that was a cool song as well. So those are the two that I've selected from Stained Class. The next album is Killing Machine, which was released as Hellbent for Leather in the US. The song I loved from this, and I thought it really sounds awesome, is Running Wild. I love that song. I thought that was an awesome song. It's very catchy, very cool riffs. It's just got a great feel to it, you know, great upbeat feel. It's very catchy. The second song that I like from that is sort of like an anthemic song called Rock Forever. It's a simple rocking anthemic song. I really like that one as well. Okay, moving on. The next album, British Steel, which is seen as a bit of a classic. The song that I want to consider here is Grinder. I really like this one. I thought it was a really cool tune. It was quite heavy as well. Like, Priests were getting more metallic as obviously as the time was going on. The albums were getting slightly heavier, slightly better produced, slightly crunchier guitars. Grinder was a really heavy song. I mean, I love the chorus on that as well. It's simple, but it's really fitting to the song. The other song that stood out was Steeler. It was a faster paced song. I thought that was a really cool song as well. Very underrated. But Grinder is the song to consider on that album. Next is the album Point of Entry, where I think Priest really went pretty commercial on this album. They've moved out of the being an underground band and they're trying to crack America. They're really pretty commercial on this album. The song that I like most, I think it's quite a hit, well, a fairly well-known song and still awesome song, is Desert Plains. I mean, I think it's an awesome song. I wouldn't say it's hugely underrated, but it's fairly underrated. It is a wicked song. The other song that I liked is On the Run, which is probably more underrated, if anything, but it's not as good as Desert Plains. But On the Run is a catchy song as well. I really like that one. Okay, the next album for Priest, Screaming for Vengeance. It's a big fan favourite, of course. The song I liked here is, I think, quite a well-known song, but it is an awesome song. Actually, there's a lot of awesome songs on Screaming for Vengeance. It was hard to choose, but the song I did pick as being the one underrated song is Devil's Child. I thought that was a really catchy song. I mean, Halford's vocal on that is really awesome. The second song to consider is Bloodstone. That's another very catchy song. I mean, the chorus is simple, but Halford's vocal on it is just awesome. He sings that so well. And there's a lot to choose from on Screaming for Vengeance, but some of the other ones are more well known, so I went for these two, but preference for Devil's Child, even though it is quite a famous song in its own right. Okay, the next album of Defenders of the Faith. For this album, the song that really stood out for me as being really awesome is Rock Hard Ride Free. This is such an awesome song. I mean, Halford's vocal on that is just amazing. The chorus is like high, but it's very catchy. The pace is awesome. I love that song. I think it's really underrated. I would love to see Priest playing that song live even these days if they could, but obviously I don't know. It's not really a massive song in their catalogue, so they never play it. The other song that I really like from this is Night Comes Down. It's a brooding song, brooding, melodic, probably slightly a ballad if you like, but it's sort of very dark. It's a bit dark as the theme, as the title of the song would suggest. But I really enjoyed that song. I think it's awesome. Yeah, I really like that one. Okay, moving on to the next album, the very, very commercial Turbo. The song that I like from here is Reckless, towards the end of the album. I thought that's a really catchy song. It's very commercial, but I like commercial. I mean, I like my melodic hard rock, so it suits me down to the ground, that song. That chorus is very catchy. I mean, Priest is very good at these type of choruses. Like, they'll repeat the title and then have a couple of other words afterwards. It's a regular theme for them to write choruses like this. The other song that I liked from this is another brooding song, Out in the Cold. I thought that was a really good song as well. It's a really cool song. It's a moodier song, but really cool as well. But Reckless was the one that stood out for me there as being underrated. Okay, moving on again to Ram It Down. Ram It Down is a good album. The song that stood out really a lot for me here is Hard as Iron. I thought it's really catchy. It's very fast paced, great riffs. The chorus is high. I mean, Halford is singing. It's so awesome. Rob Halford. He's really good on this album as well. I really like his vocals on Hard as Iron. The other song that I like on this is a bit of a cheesy song, but it is a really catchy song. It's called Love Zone. I thought that Love Zone was awesome. It's really cool. Very catchy song. It's got a nice tempo. Halford's vocals, again, like I said, on this album, they're really nice. The production is really nice. Although very 80s sounding, but it's still very cool. Very clean as well. Okay, moving on to Priest's most heaviest album, Painkiller. Chock full of hits, so it's hard to say what's underrated on this album. Chock full of hits. But the song that stood out for me as being slightly underrated, not completely because it's still got a lot of fans, is Leather Rebel. I think that's just an awesome song. The pacing is lovely, the riff's awesome, the chorus is so catchy, the verses are catchy, everything about it is great. It's just a great song. The other song that I really like as well, which is slightly underrated again, is One Shot at Glory. That's a really cool song as well. It's very catchy, very anthemic. It's an awesome song. What can I say? Now we move on to the Ripper Owens era, Jugulator. This was a difficult listen. I had to listen through some of these songs to decide on what's possibly slightly underrated. And to be honest, it was difficult. I couldn't really say anything would be underrated on this. I mean, the only song that's quite a good song is Bullet Train. I think it's a heavy song, very heavy. Most of the album is very heavy. It's blisteringly heavy, but it just doesn't have the catchiness level that classic Priest has. So it's really hard to get into. But Bullet Train is an okay song. The other song is Cathedral Spires that quite a lot of people love from this album. I like it, it's okay, but I'm not a huge fan of it again. But a lot of people love that song, but they would say that's probably the underrated song from the album. But apart from those two, there's not a lot there for the listener. Okay, now moving on to the second Ripper Owens album, Demolition. This was a difficult listen. I just couldn't find much to talk about on this. The only song that's got slight catchiness to it is One on One. So that's the only one I can list as being slightly underrated for that album. It wasn't a pretty album, that's for sure. Demolition. Okay, now next we move on to the reunion era with Halford, the final four albums of Judas Priest. The first one, Angel of Retribution, it's a pretty good comeback, I must admit, pretty good comeback. The song that I really enjoy from this is Hell Rider. I think that's an awesome song. It's got great pacing again. Halford sounds good. He really sounds good, and the chorus is very catchy. It's quite moody, quite dramatic as well, but very catchy. The other second song that I like from this is Revolution. I think that's a pretty good song as well. Very cool song, very cool riffs, great vocal from Halford as usual. Good song. But Hell Rider is the one that's proper underrated. Next, moving on to Nostradamus, and this was quite a difficult listen. It wasn't easy listening to this one. It's got its moments, but it's overblown, so overblown. The song that I came down to as being slightly underrated is Persecution. It's a pretty good song. It's catchy riffs, good vocal. It's a nice song. The second song to back it up is a song called Conquest, which was an okay song itself. It's a good song. Those two on Nostradamus. slightly underrated maybe. Next, moving on to the penultimate album, Redeemer of Souls. The song that I've gone for here is Battle Cry, towards the end of the album. This is an awesome song, great riffs, very modern power metal-y, but without the very modern production. It's still got sort of slightly outdated sounding production compared to more modern power metal. But the song itself is really catchy. The second song I've gone for is March of the Damned, which is like a sort of brooding song. It's pretty cool though. It's very heavy as well. I like March of the Damned. It's a good song. So Battle Cry for the first underrated, and March of the Damned for the second underrated. And finally, the last album. This is the Firepower shirt that I'm wearing today. The song I've gone for here is Flamethrower. That's a really cool song. I'd love to hear that live if they ever recorded it. I think Flamethrower is really good. The backup song to that is No Surrender. It's such a catchy tune. It's a more like slightly more commercial tune, but very cool as well. Very underrated, I think. But Flamethrower is awesome. It's just a wicked tune. So Flamethrower is the #1 underrated song. I'm going to quickly go through them all. Dying to Meet You from Rock'n'Roller, Island of Domination from Sad Wings of Destiny, Starbreaker from Sin After Sin, Invader from Stained Class, Running Wild from Killing Machine or Hellbent for Leather, Grinder from British Steel, Desert Plains from Point of Entry, Devil's Child from Screaming for Vengeance, Rock Hard, Ride Free, Defenders of the Faith, Reckless from Turbo, Hard as Iron from Ram It Down, Leather Rebel from Painkiller, Bullet Train from Jugulator, One on One from Demolition, Hell Rider from Angel of Retribution, Persecution from Nostradamus, Battle Cry from Redeemer of Souls, and Flamethrower from Firepower. Okay, that was Judas Priest. Underrated songs, one per album. Stay tuned for more.